I'm headed to work, but I want to get this out before the day starts for anyone who needs to hear it. The Lord gave me a dream that is for the African American community of believers. Um, it had my sisters in it, but they weren't my sisters. They symbolized other things. It was about kind of the family of faith in the black community, family of believers. So in the dream, and there were several parts, we were in Wakanda or from Wakanda. And T'Challa was at like a movie theater and he was announcing Zuri or whatever his sister's name is, but he was announcing her as his woman. And I'm thinking like, that's his sister. Why would he call her his woman? But in the dream, they weren't sister and brother. This was somebody he was about to be with. And there are several parts that I'm going to sort of skip over, but essentially he announced her and then he took like a mop, and after he announced her he spread this water around the floor, and you could tell it was just water because even though he spread it over these black spots that made it seem like maybe it was paint, once he got past that black area you could see it was just like wetting the floor was black, but what he was spreading was just clear water. And it was an important moment. He was full of joy and he was so exuberant, but he sort of hesitated in his language in the way that he announced her. And I was wondering why. Like, if everybody, so many people around him were, they knew that she meant more than him than he was letting on, and they knew how happy he was. And God showed me this is about how in the black community that black brothers, because before we enter into marriage, there's a platonic reality of almost a brotherhood, a sisterhood. We call each other brother, sister, right? Because there's nothing sexual involved. And then when you take a woman, when a man takes a woman, that's when she becomes more than the other women in the world. More than his mother, more than his actual sisters, more than the rest of the women who are now just platonic, quote unquote, sisters to him. And a part of what black men are missing out on is the blessing of the exuberance of covenant and partnership. That when you have a woman, when the Lord has given you a woman, a wife, there should be no holding back or no downplaying the goodness of that thing that you received, because you diminish some of the blessings. You diminish the blessing. And in the dream, she was just exuberant and shining. Everybody received her well. But there were several other parts in the dream. Now, Wakanda was being accused by these other governments of war crimes, being falsely accused of crimes they didn't commit, because these other governments wanted to take over their military, Wakanda's military resources. And so in the dream, I saw that they were seizing the military resources, which included money, weapons, all sorts of things. And when they were seizing it, I, as a part of Wakanda, wasn't necessarily worried, because in the process of them trying to catalog it and things like that, they poured it on the streets where different people in different nations had access to, especially the weapons, which was dangerous. And like, why would you take these weapons from one nation and make them so accessible to some other struggling nations, especially in the poor communities, right? It just seemed like you're pouring harm and weapons and dangerous things into these communities, which is what they were doing, which is what's happening with the black community. The governments and entities that are, for some reason, set on seeing us destroyed, who are allowing the enemy to use them, are exploiting us for our resources and then appropriating those resources to sort of feed them back to us in a way that would be harmful to us. But I took some of the money, and I was in a truck with my sister, and we were driving around. I was counting the money, but the Lord was showing me that was not all of the money we could have recovered. I was so focused on counting the money that I recovered in the midst of the process of the government putting the spoils in the streets, that it didn't occur to me that I could have filled up this truck with all these resources. But instead, I was talking to my sister about missing the past and missing what was, to the point where we were no longer in the front of the truck, but we were in the back of the truck. Somehow the truck was driving, even though we were sitting in the back of the box truck with the door open, looking behind it. And somehow my sister was driving it from the back. And eventually I went back to the front and like, this is dangerous. And there were no lights. We went into a dark neighborhood and there were no lights in the streets. and I realized the headlights of the truck were not on. So I went and turned them on. And the Lord showed me that the truck represents ministry. When we're walking in a certain ministry, it has certain capacities to accomplish certain tasks. And in dreams, vehicles can symbolize a ministry and its outfit, how it's equipped to function. And in this dream, me and my sister represented the family of faith, family of believers, African Americans specifically. We missed the mark and not realizing that because we were focused on the past or looking behind us, that we missed an opportunity to do something. But the lights weren't on the truck. And I wrote it down right here. The Lord said the money that I had in the box truck was recovered, but it wasn't all of it. It was recovered from the military purge, the takeover. The enemy wants to spoil our warfare tactics as African American believers, and it wants to exploit our resources. But any and all approaches against darkness rooted in the light of Christ will prevail against the very gates of hell. God has said to turn on the lights. So I turned on the headlights of the truck, and then we could see, but then it transformed in the dream. God is saying, don't get caught looking back. Stay focused on what's ahead. If we stay focused on what's ahead, and we stay focused on what we're equipped to do, and we change the narrative of what we believe about ourselves as Black people, especially Black Christians who are caught up in a lot of deception right now. Right now, the deception is running high. There's this Jesus and other things, and there's also the people falling away from the Black church because they feel like it's been built by lies to control us as Black people. But that's a lot from the pit of hell. The adversary does not want us as African American believers to understand the resources we have right around us and how our ministries are equipped. So this is part 1. Hopefully I can post part 2 because the dream had more to it, and God gave me much more meaning in prayer this morning. So if this speaks to you, get into the comments. But God is speaking to his people. He's speaking today. Amen. Amen.